Did you lean into some scriptures or, when you were doing this, was it that you were just letting God lead you, Alyssa? Or, was this something it sounds like you weren't intentionally trying to do these things.
I did not do this intentionally, but in saying that, I asked God to lead me into what would help me to do that. And at the same time, to help other people, because that is what I feel called to do, was to help other people. And at that point, it was just like, whatever you tell me to do, God, I'm going to try to do it. And I am a journaler. I write in a prayer journal every day. And so I can go back in those journals, and I have stacks and stacks of them, and see where God would lead, like every little step. And some of those little steps don't seem like a lot at the time, but if you add them all up, it, obviously is all inspiring. Like you're just in awe of what God did, because it just, it was just day by day there for a long time.
You're listening to Altered Stories with Michelle Gutch.
Hello, Altered Story Show listeners, and welcome to my Season 4, Episode 165, featuring my special guest here, Alyssa Avant. And she's going to be sharing her faith, flexibility, and my unexpected career God story. That is so exciting. This is your chief storyteller host, friends, Michelle Saunders Gutch. What a mouthful. And thank you for listening and watching my show that helps Christian women like Alyssa share their God stories so women around the world can hear them and never feel alone. And friends, if one of our stories has blessed you, bless us by subscribing to our show on YouTube or on Apple or Spotify and sharing the episodes. Or, because we are a nonprofit ministry, we would be certainly blessed to receive a donation on our website at www.alteredstories.org to help another woman share her God story. Now, friends, I'm not going to share too many housekeeping items here today. I'm going to get jumping into this rocking interview. I hope you have had the opportunity to register for our annual Women at the Well, Our Stories, Our Songs September luncheon. If you haven't, please do that right away. You're going to hear more details at the end of this podcast on how you can do that. But I wanted to remind you that this is not just an in-person luncheon event. It is also virtual. So now all women all over the world who've heard the podcast or been a guest can join us virtually on Friday, September 26th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. Central Time. And you're going to love this faith-filled event and enjoy meeting Jesus at the well. So now, let's get this show started. I am excited to bring Alyssa to the mic. And what's so cool about her is she's also a great partner in helping the ministry find resources virtually. She has been a godsend to Altered Stories Ministry. Our Christy is one that she has blessed us with in connecting us. She's had referrals or given them to us. And she, of course, does some amazing stuff herself. But you know what? We wanted to honor her today and bring her here to share her life-altering God story. In addition to how she serves us, she is, of course, a virtual assistant, a strategist, a content creator, a podcaster soon to be again. She has over 16 years of experience supporting Christian authors, speakers, and coaches. She specializes in helping her clients build and maintain their online presence through systems, email, marketing, and content strategy. And her podcast that she currently has out, the Christian Business Advantage podcast, is such a great resource. And she shares on that podcast some faith-filled entrepreneurship insights. So, welcome, Alyssa. Thank you for being so patient while I did talk about you. Do tell us more.
Okay, well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Have been looking forward to this time together, and I was so excited to share with your audience about my story of how God really carved out this unique career path for me over the years. I started doing this, believe it or not, almost 18 years ago. It seems like a long time.
Whoa. Yeah.
Um, Absolutely. So it would have been around January of 2007, I stepped down from my position in ministry. I was a youth and children's director at a local church because I was expecting my second child, my daughter, who is now 18.
Wow.
And I was wanting to stay at home with her and her older brother, who was around 4. Well, he would be turning 4 before she was, or right around the time she was born. So I wanted to stay home with them, and I wanted to be able to do something that would be able to allow me to do that and make a small income from home. And I had been doing some speaking and writing at that point, mainly to youth groups or mother-daughter groups and things like that. So I did have some of those opportunities lined up, but they were, not consistent. And so I had gone online to look for opportunities to make a little income. And obviously, there were a lot of, even like there are today, a lot of scams out there,
Yeah. Oh, it's
and
terrible.
things like that you have to be careful of. But my daughter was born in March, and around October, I finally found this mom group online in what I call an old school forum. So think about Facebook groups, but prior to Facebook groups. So we just had these text sort of threads. There wasn't a lot of like images or anything, videos, none of that. It was just text threads, and we would talk. And I had started a mom blog and had been posting. And I was talking with these ladies, and I was asking them about how are some ways that I could make an income. And I guess I must have, this seems crazy to have done, but I must have published my phone number somewhere because I get a phone call from a lady who was in New York and I'm in Mississippi. And she asked me, could she hire me to do some ghostwriting of some articles for her mom website, that she had read my writing and she liked my writing style, and she would pay me to write these articles.
Are you ready to meet Jesus at the well? Join us Friday, September 26th from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. Central Standard Time for Women at the Well luncheon, Our Stories, Our Song. Located at 210 Southwest Market Street at Bridge Space in Lee's Summit, Missouri. Or join us virtually via Zoom from anywhere in the world. Hosted by Michelle Saunders-Gotch and Altered Stories Ministry, this event includes free giveaways and the fellowship your heart is craving. Don't miss this opportunity to be refreshed, restored, and reminded of God's unfailing love. Please visit our Facebook page, Altered Stories Ministry, to gain access to our Women at the Well event page. Register today because your story matters and Jesus is waiting to meet you at the well.
And one thing you have to know about why that was significant was back then, article marketing, which was a way of marketing your business, was popular. And you would submit your article to article banks, and those would go out and they would be curated online on different websites. And then those would link back to your website. So to create these traffic and links. And so
Wow.
of course, I said, yes, I would do that. She sent me over the topics and I began writing for her. And luckily, she had some other contacts. And obviously, within this forum, there were contacts of other individuals who were wanting to article market as well. And so for the first right at 2 years, all I did was write articles for article marketing as a ghostwriter. So they would put their name on the article. I would just research and write the article. And so did that. I was able to make, even the first month or two, around $500 a month at that point, which was great for me as a young mom who just wanted some diaper money and grocery
Yeah.
money. Yeah. So that was something
So good.
and I did this, people ask, how did you do that with a toddler or almost preschooler and a baby? And I did it during their nap time or while I was, after they went to bed. And so that really started my business. I got a website called awriterforhire.com. And I wrote about everything from those mom articles about potty training and the things that I was, learning as a young mom to men's eyeglasses. I mean, it was crazy how the topics were so varied that I wrote about. And at the end of that 2009, I went to my very first business conference, flew to San Antonio, Texas. I had never flown by myself and met, other entrepreneurs, other people who were trying to make it online. And I had kind of gotten burnt out of that article writing. I wanted to do other things.
Yeah.
I wanted to author a book myself. And so I thought, if I'm writing for others, this is going to take away from me writing for myself. And so I began to have conversations at that event and learned that, people wanted some other things that I had learned to do for myself. I had learned to put up a website on WordPress. I had learned social media, which was still in an infant stage at that point. And I, was teaching myself things like email marketing. And so we had these conversations and they would say, well, how did you do it? And I would explain, what I learned. And they would say, well, can you do that for me? And I would say, yes. And so I came home with clients for these new skill sets and services that I offered. And so that was really exciting to come home, with these clients. And that's where my virtual assistant business began.
Wow.
Even though I had no idea that that was what it was called. I didn't know I was becoming a virtual assistant. I just knew I was offering these services. People would pay me for them. They were ethical, morally, good things to do. And I enjoyed it. And so I was excited. And that's when my business started. And I worked my business part-time up until about 2015. And that's when all of my kids were in school, full-time in school. And I was able to commit myself to working more hours on my business. And so I've been a virtual assistant ever since. 2 years ago, I realized that if I was going to be able to help more people, I needed help myself. I had done internships where I would teach women how to become a virtual assistant, teach them some of these skills that I had learned, and then they could choose to go out and start their own business. There are numerous ladies that have done that are still in business today. I have a really close friend who was my intern. Trisha Cords was my intern. I can't remember what year, but I do know that we have been holding each other accountable as accountability partners in business since 2020. And so for the last 5 years, we've had this accountability partner relationship. She lives in Ohio. And so she had taught school for a long time. She was able in 2 years to build a business to full time so that she could quit her job as a teacher. And she did that several years ago. I think she's been in business somewhere around 7 or 8 years now. So it's been, a good bit of time.
She's a rock star. She's been working. You referred her. She is a rock star, gal. You trained her well.
I trained her. So she is so much fun. And those are the types of relationships that I've been able to build over the years. And they may start out as me mentoring them or teaching them, but they turn into friendships, and it's just wonderful. So in 2023, though, I decided, okay, if I'm going to grow this business any further, and help more people, I've got to have help. And so I just started with the virtual assistant intern that was with me at the time. And I asked her, would she want to come on board as a team member? And she said yes. And we started out really slow, me outsourcing things to her. And as of today, I have 4 people working on my team, including Christy, that also works with you. And they're in other states. They all are work from home moms. They make their own schedules. They are assigned clients. When we get a new client, I will look at their skill set, because many of them are specialized in different areas that I'm not, as strong in. And they will, then, I will assign them to this client, and they will begin to serve that client, and build a relationship with the client. And so that's kind of how it has worked. This would, in July, was 2 years since I started, hiring my first team member. And so Ashton celebrated 2 years with Alicia Avan and Company in July. And it's been really fun. All of my interns get the opportunity, if they, do well and complete the internship, if there is enough client load for me to need a new team member, then they are asked to join the team and continue to serve alongside of us. So that's kind of how the business has evolved over the years. It will be 18 years in October since I got my very first client. And God really honestly carved out a ministry and a business for me. We work with authors, speakers, and coaches, mostly Christian authors, speakers, and coaches. There's a few other people, obviously, but that's our primary target market. And I chose that because I love to write. I love to read. I was, the library kid growing up. And so I just chose to work with those types of people. Plus, they have a mission and a calling on their life. And my goal is to come alongside them and support them in that.
Yeah. Wow. You did a fantastic job, Cal. That's a lot of talking. And you didn't stop. A lot of my guests, that's what they do. They will go through because they have their story. And then some will say, hey, will you kind of ask a few questions to help me along? But you did a fantastic job. So when you go out and speak and share, do you share different areas of expertise? Or, what I just asked you to do is go through a whole 18-year history of what God has done and how He has brought you to where you are, obviously. So, there's, I guess, when you are asked to speak, do you go through some of these areas of expertise, like email marketing and different things?
Yes. So one of the things that I do is I have a private Facebook group for Christian authors, speakers, and coaches. Now I think I changed it to say Christian business owners, because it really can help anybody that has a business. But what I do in there is about once every 6 weeks, we take a topic and I do a free training. So this past week, before I left on my trip that I've just gone on, we did 5 simple steps to grow your email list. So that's something that if I go speak somewhere that I would do a talk on. I've also done them on content repurposing, how to create a content calendar, and how to repurpose what you already have to save yourself time. But this particular event, I just spoke at the Advanced Writers and Speakers Conference. I spoke on the topic of working with a virtual assistant, because a lot of people don't understand that relationship or what a VA can do for them, how much it costs, what to expect, all of those things. So I broke down basically what a virtual assistant is and what a virtual assistant is not. the benefits of working with a virtual assistant, and then what are some of the things that you can delegate to a virtual assistant, questions to ask yourself before hiring a virtual assistant, and then like, are you ready to hire a VA? So are you experiencing some of these things like, you are overwhelmed, or you're putting things off and procrastinating certain tasks just because you don't have time to get to them, things like that. And then I did share that VAs often have a specialization. So I shared how there are other author virtual assistants that call themselves author virtual assistants that do things very different than I do. They offer very different skills and services. They might offer editing or book formatting, and that's not a service that I provide.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to kind of look for your needs
Mm-hmm.
and what it is that you need in your business before you hire someone, because being a VA, I call it an umbrella. It's a huge umbrella that all these things are hanging underneath, and they're varied in what we offer. You can find a VA for everybody from a real estate agent to, someone who works with a lawyer or an author. I mean, and their skills will be different. I know when I have gone out back in the day when I had to look for jobs or look for clients, and I would go on job boards, they would say, "Do you know the real estate business? Can you, do listings and do these different things?" And I knew that wasn't for me because I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I would look for jobs like with WordPress, redesign a website, or maintain a website and things like that. I would look for the technical pieces. I'm very techie, so
Mm-hmm.
I do the behind the scenes of the tech pieces of your business. If you can't figure out like it was fun at my workshop. I had a client in the room, and so I asked her, could I put her on the spot and her tell the audience what she thought about working with me. And she said, well, I hired her originally. She was the third VA that I hired to help me fix my website. And she said, I kept her because she actually fixed my website. And so then like hands were shooting up. Can you fix my website? So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like,
It's a demand.
things like that people need. They don't know they can't troubleshoot it. Back, I guess it's been probably about 10 or 12 years ago, I've often been in professional organizations because I find that that's where my clients are. And so I was a
Yeah.
part of an organization called the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs, and I spoke at
Mm-hmm.
their conference in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a good friend there that called me NACWE. We called it NACWE, NACWE's Tech Magician. And so she would say, if you need something fixed, go see her. She's our tech magician.
Oh,
And so
wow.
she nicknames me that. And so that's how I got a ton of clients. But God would always put me in these circles to, be able to find clients and the type of, so I always tell new VAs, go look for the people that you wish to serve, and then you just go in those groups, be a part of that organization, and then just, offer your expertise and answer questions and, be of help. And then, people will hire you. That's just kind of how it works. So
Well, they're
that's how I've
blessed.
done it.
Well, it's such a blessing. So let's step back a little bit, because I know you're a woman of faith, a godly woman, and you do try to match the VA culturally to the client that you're serving, which is what
Yes.
you've done with the VAs or those that are serving in the Altered Stories Ministry organization. But um, did you did you lean into some scriptures or when you were doing this, I mean, was it that you were just letting God lead you, Alyssa? Or, was this something it sounds like you weren't intentionally trying to do these things. You were doing the things that you felt like you needed to do. Because the reason I'm asking this just is because you sound very much like a pioneer. Okay. I'm a pioneer. John Maxwell, who is a huge influence in my life from way back in all my leadership, talks about the role of the pioneer. And when pioneers step out, they're usually the first, but they don't realize they're the first, and they're not trying to intentionally be the first. They just become the first.
Right.
Because that is what they love. And so I guess my question is, when you were starting to formulate and do this, were there scriptures? Did God, did you go into your prayer closet? Was God, really, was it confirming because you had doors open? I mean, how did you see God's hand in this?
Okay. So I did not intentionally do this.
No.
Not at all. My intention the entire time, and it's going to sound a little like, not like I don't know how it'll sound exactly, but my intention was to provide for my family. So I had 3 little ones. I ended up a year after my daughter was born. Well, they're 16 months apart. I had my 3rd child. So within a year of starting my business, I had a 4-year-old, a 16-month-old, and a newborn. And you just kind of get that motherly whatever to provide for those children. And so my husband obviously worked and a full-time job, as he still does, and all, but even back then, we needed some income for me to be able to provide what we needed for our family. So it was very much out of necessity. And then my children ended up going to private school. So my goal was to pay for their private school. And I did that for 18 years. We are free from private school.
That is huge. I know my daughter went to private school toward the end.
Yeah.
So
I no longer have any children in private school. It's funny. We got a text the other day that said they signed us up for softball concession stand duty. And we said, why? We have no children there. But, 18 years, they just assume, I guess. So, but I did not do this intentionally. That was my intention there. But in saying that, I asked God to lead me into what would help me to do that. And at the same time, to help other people, because that is what I feel called to do, was to help other people. And at that point, it was just like, whatever you tell me to do, God, I'm going to try to do it. And I am a journaler. I write in a prayer journal every day. And so I can go back in those journals, and I have stacks and stacks of them, and see where God would lead, like every little step. And some of those little steps don't seem like a lot at the time, but if you add them all up, it, obviously is all awe-inspiring. Like you're just in awe of what God did, because it just, it was just day by day there for a long time. And so when you look back, it makes a lot of sense. But at the time, it just felt like, I was in the trenches. I had kids, like my kids would throw the sippy cup, and get upset and angry and cry. And I used to not even take phone calls when my kids were small. I tried to do everything through email, or I would hide in the closet with the cordless phone or something crazy like that.
Oh, yeah. That's a lot.
Clients, and it felt so overwhelming at the time, and like I was never going to get anywhere. But obviously, as I sit in my she shed now, I have a private office. God brought me out of that, obviously.
Yes.
And so it took a lot of years, but he always did lead me. Many times I felt like giving up or throwing in the towel. I can't tell you how many times that I went and applied for jobs outside the home thinking this would be easier than what I'm doing. I even went to some interviews, and every time God shut the door and I
Yeah.
didn't take the job.
Yep.
Every single time. And there was
Yep.
multiple times.
Yep.
So because anything had to be easier than this, but I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad that I
Yes.
kept going. Um, because obviously it's been worth it. And one I can remember really always wanting to help, not just help the authors and speakers and provide the service, but also wanting to help other moms to be able to do the same because it made such a difference in my life. My kids never went to daycare. They went to private school for 18 years or all total combined 18 years. And I was at every event and picked them up when they were sick and all those things. So that was a huge blessing on our family. And I know what I was able to do. So I know that young moms, like Ashton is the youngest on my team, and she has a 2-year-old. And she, knows that this is what she wants to do and how she wants to be able to raise her family. And that to me is worth every second,
Right.
because it's what I was able to do. And so being able to help another woman be able to do that is amazing. I mean, that's a blessing.
Yeah. Well, there's so much goodness and so much in what you've shared. It's such a win-win all the way around.
Mhm.
And, I can relate to God closing doors because I came out of a business background, leadership, all of that. And I migrated from corporate America
Mhm.
into an entrepreneurial kind of role as the founder and all those things.
Right.
And God, many times I've had these distractions and opportunities outside of contractual work. God just won't let me get distracted. He wants me to do, and he's got a plan and a purpose, right?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
and so we got to stay the course. We got to trust him. We got to let him lead. And so this God story is such an great and inspiring story for women who are maybe in the thrust of, a struggle, you know, and going, why, God, why am I here? What am I, I don't want this. This is too hard. This is too difficult. So, I'd love to hear before we wrap up from you just some last, encouraging words like scripture, maybe that can, and just, how can you be contacted? Or if someone's out there going, oh, I think I might want to get on that train with Alyssa and her team. By the way, Alyssa
Advance.
Avant.
Uh-huh.
Forgive me, I said
Yeah.
Avant.
That's okay.
Avant. So any of that before we wrap up?
Absolutely. So my my verse has always been, for all things work together for good to those who are called according to his purpose. And, which is Romans 8:28. I think I missed a little snippet there out of that. But, he's going to work it out no matter what. And sometimes we have to wait on that, even though, we don't want to or whatever. One of those times in my life, he revealed and often brought me back to the scripture, be still and know that I'm God. Because sometimes I'm a doer and
Mm-hmm.
being still is really hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just think I gotta go do something. I gotta go do something. So, being still is hard. So sometimes God has had me do that. And so you have to do that in order to hear from him often. Because if you're busy and moving, he can't, you can't hear him speak. And then if they're interested in learning more, my business website is my name and company.com. So you'll have to spell that all out because I know it kind of spelled odd, but that they can go to. And of course, I am my name on every like social media platform as well. So
Okay, well, that is great. Friends, I want to say that we're going to have this episode out there on our WordPress website, and Alyssa will have an episode area where we will put some of the links and some summary and show notes and all that,
Yes.
and even a way to listen, many ways to listen to
Right.
this podcast episode. In addition, friends, will be out on all those major platforms and on our YouTube channel with this episode. So I really appreciate, again, Alyssa, the time you've taken and your support of Altered Stories Ministry. And I look forward to ways that we can continue our partnership. And until the next show, friends, be heard and be healed.
Altered Stories Ministry is a faith-based, nonprofit, and women's evangelistic storytelling ministry. If you enjoyed listening to today's story, your family and friends would probably benefit from hearing how God works in the lives of women all over the world, too. So please, subscribe to our show and share the link to this podcast. Share it on your social media. We also welcome your valued feedback on our stories. Also, we'd appreciate your prayerful consideration in sponsoring one of our future God-glorifying stories and welcome your tax-exempt financial donation. To find out more on how you can support our ministry, you can log on to our website at www.alteredstories.org.